Welcome to the Ignite You podcast,
where two bros journey into all things spirituality and human transformation.
Let's get it. Cheers.
Welcome back to another episode. This is Ryan Miller.
And Cam McDougall.
And...
Quick, get a sip in.
Quick sip. This episode today is all about masturbation.
Manifestation.
Ooh. What does that mean? What does it mean? What are we diving into?
Why are we here?
What are we doing?
What is this place?
What a juicy topic of discussion. And actually, the first place we heard this, we didn't make this up. We actually heard this from a fellow friend.
We did.
Is that the first place you heard it, actually?
It was.
Okay. Same.
It was. I had never heard this term before.
And now we're making an episode about it.
And the subtext to this episode is wanking your way to your highest expression.
And Cam made that one up.
I did. That was an original.
Wanking your way. We weren't going to use it initially because we felt like it was singular to a certain sex, but it's not, though we found out.
One blog post written by one woman said that wanking is a unisex term, even though it might sound like jerking off.
Yep, it can be used for all people. So we did use wanking our way because it sounds really good.
We're going to get into something serious soon, we promise.
Yes. We have lots of things to drop into about this. We're going to talk about pleasure. It's been a while since we've done an episode on pleasure. We're going to talk about honing in sexual energy, transmutation of sexual energy to
sublimation.
Creation. Yeah, sublimation and transmutation. These are beautiful words.
Lots of ns.
Really?
Sorry.
We're going to have lots of ns in this episode for sure.
Ryan actually made our cappuccinos today green.
Yeah, the matcha cows are green because Cam is going away for a little bit.
So we had to clear out all the matcha.
Yep, and it seems like you're going pretty hard, pretty quick. Cam's going to be activated in about 3 minutes, so be ready for that. And to start off the episode, we usually like to go into a little story time.
So sit down, children. Get cozy.
If you're not already
sitting down.
Or go for a walk.
Or sit on Ryan's lap. Not with this topic. That wouldn't be right.
Nope. Cool. So
right on.
Yeah. This is a topic that we do love to speak about, and we've noticed that the audience actually loves to hear about more sexual discussions that are from a conscious space, but not talking about it and taking it too seriously. As you can tell, we're in a playful mood today, but especially when it comes to these topics, we like to have lightheartedness around it. We like to explore these things, have curiosity. Cam and I are not experts in this arena, or most arenas that we actually bring up on this podcast. I'm an expert. Cam says he's an expert in this arena. He's not.
Okay.
And so...
Disclaimer.
But we've had lots of experience in these spaces and work with a lot of people in these arenas. So we do love to dive into them from our personal perspective.
We read it in a book one place.
Yeah. I didn't even listen to the book. I listened to the summary. It was like 3 minutes. And it was pretty good.
And you don't even know if he said masturbation, manifestation.
Now that you say it, I don't.
Okay, so the real story, this is pretty funny, and I got full consent to share this story because it is somewhat private to my current partner and a good friend of Ryan's. Mm-hmm. When her and I started connecting and investigating things from a relationship standpoint, she came to me and told me her secret to wooing me.
Oh.
Because she wooed me.
She did.
Where woo even come from? Is that?
Well, if you say woo-woo, there could be a different experience.
Like woo-woo!
It could be like woo-woo, or it could be like, that's a bit woo-woo. You got too many crystals.
Oh, okay.
But one woo is usually a good thing. Either a celebratory woo at a sporting event or something of the kind.
Yeah.
Or a woo to potentially persuade or pursue somebody in your direction and or cause affection.
Wow. Can you transcribe that? Because that was...
No.
Should be an Urban
Dictionary.
That's it.
So she wooed you.
So she wooed me.
Yep.
And so I was curious. I was like, how did you woo me so effectively? And
You didn't say that, though.
for sure.
You never said that ever.
Not what I said. It's the first time I said it was right now. That being said, it sounds better when I say it that way. So thank you for interrupting my flow once again.
Gotcha. No doubt.
You know, cool. She told me that after the first night that we met at, of course, ecstatic dance, because we ecstatically dance,
we like it
frequently. Mm-hmm. We just exchanged a couple words, a couple "Hey, how you doing?" a couple little "Can I sit next to you and have a little chat? You're kind of cool."
Yep.
And apparently, she then took that experience back to the bedroom and added me into, these are her terms, the spank bank.
Beautiful.
So she started visualizing our connection in masturbation. And talking to one of her friends after a couple months of doing this, she said, "Hey, I'm actually going out on a date with Cam." And her friend replied, "That's a masturbation manifestation." Because she knew that I was in her spank bank. So we thought we would do an episode on this, because even though this is a ridiculous story and a funny one, also true story, there is a lot of merit to what she said. And we've also had some clients and people in the community reach out and ask for us to talk about utilizing sexual energy for manifestation and creation. So there's a lot of little parallels that have just come together to bloom into this beautiful, wonderful episode we are reciting to you now.
Wow. Love it. Why did your lip just twitch, though? That's all I want to know.
Too
much matcha.
Because I'm excited.
And too much matcha. So it's very true that that's what happened. And beautiful story. You guys are together. You guys are loving the experience. You're having lots of beautiful sexual connection. We love that. We love celebrating
Now
that.
everybody knows.
Now you all know. And things we're going to speak about are in the category of what he just shared about his partner, which is going into that space of masturbation, which in that case was a release, was an ejaculation. And we're going to go onto the spectrum of retention, of holding that energy, otherwise known as sexual transmutation, of actually keeping that energy in and transmutating it towards other things you want to either create in your life or focus on or have come to life around you.
And I think that to just bring that into a sequence statement, the matcha just hit.
There you go.
Yeah, we're in it.
Let's get intellectual.
It is asking yourself the question, what are you using your sexual energy for? And how are you cultivating that sexual energy within yourself? Because very important to distinguish that, because as Ryan said, we're going to get into these various forms of utilizing sexual energy and cultivating it. But it's very important that we know exactly what we are using our sexual energy for. Because a lot of people are like, I'm horny, I have great sex. That's pretty much as far as it goes. But they go into that, and there's no further explanation of what it's used for beyond the more common use of just procreation, when it really has so many different applications across the whole spectrum of how we ignite the soul and cultivate the life of our dreams.
Yeah. And when it comes to your personal pleasure practice, coming to masturbating, it's very interesting because you and I both relate on this, and probably everybody listening to this can relate on this, either past tense or presently. Having the experience of doing a practice, or it might not even be a practice, masturbating, and feeling bad after. Or doing it because, I'm just so stressed, so I need a release, or blah, blah, blah. Examples go on. And I know I lived with that for the longest time, and it still comes up every once in a while, that thought and that want to go down that path. But now, consciously creating the space, since the celibacy that we've spoken about on a few different episodes, since my practice with that, it's a bit more conscious now to when that pops up, that behavior, that trigger to want to do that, and then I get to move the energy in a different space. And I think it's so beautiful, whether it's with a partner or with a person, or your intention is to go hook up, or your intention is to drop in with yourself. There's so many different ways to explore these practices. So I love that question to kind of kick us off. Like, what are you using it for? How are you using sexual energy? Is it conscious? Is it unconscious?
Yeah, and I totally agree, because most of us use sexual expression at some point in a form of suppression. At least I did.
Yeah.
So I won't put anybody else in that category. I will say, from my experience, I used to. Okay, I used to use sexual expression as a form of suppression. Whether that was with somebody or masturbation, it was always this kind of rock star happiness. It was this fleeting happiness. It was this, I'm either having this wild experience that comes to a climax, and then I question my decisions later on, or I'm just looking for a quick fix of pleasure and going to release unconsciously through masturbation to just feel a certain way or to change how I felt in a certain situation. So I think it's super important, because we're not taught this stuff. We're not told how powerful our sexual energy really is. And we're always just shooting it off.
Just shooting it off.
In all these directions.
Wow.
No pun intended. Well, yeah, pun intended.
Intended pun, yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't even really like a pun, but, I guess.
Sure.
We don't know.
Naughty dad joke.
Naughty dad joke. Naughty dad joke. That's a whole new spectrum. But we're not tight with our sexual energy. Okay?
Okay.
You get it, Ryan?
I get it.
You with me?
I'm with you. So it's interesting when I think back to why I started changing my practice as masturbation as a boy into a man, and what was happening there. It would happen all the time. Once you figure out, I can masturbate, this feels good, as much as I can, right? Let me do this all the time.
Dude, do you remember
I know your story.
But I relate to that.
It's amazing. Especially as a kid, you're like, wow, there's this feeling that feels so good. I can do it all the time. I can watch naked people on my phone or whatever tech or whatever was available and do this.
For me, it was Good Housekeeping.
Good Housekeeping, classic. That's a good magazine. If you've seen Step Brothers, you know.
You know that reference.
So, yeah, the change actually was being in the fitness industry and reading about releasing your load reduces testosterone. And I was like, nah, I want all my testosterone. So that's actually a shift that happened, which is funny that that's the case, because there's been different studies about that don't prove that right or wrong. But that was when the transition happened, but it still came from that place of negative energy. So when I did do it, I was like, I deserve it. I feel super built up. I feel super stressed out. Let me do it. And it's really negative feeling around it. And especially after the fact, I think you can relate to this too. And most people that unconsciously release sexually or have sexual connection just feel guilty after, or feel lack, or feel tired or lethargic. And it was this kind of empty hole. So I would do it and I'd be like, all right, cool, I can sleep now. But I wouldn't feel good the next morning. But then the next day I'd do it as well. Like, okay, now I can. So this pattern, this negative addiction to porn, to sexual energy releasing. And going down that, like I said, the big transition for me was going into celibacy, because I was like, I'm going to go. I did 3 months first of retention. And I'm doing 3 months without ejaculating. Let's see what happens. That was the big, okay, I'm really pushing myself here to stop that space, to stop that addiction. And just doing it because I could do it. I'd just be like, I'm alone. I can do it in my bed. I'm going to take a shower. Addiction goes with a habit. So I have a habit in the shower. When I'm in the shower, I do this.
Law of association.
Exactly. So then that occurs. So then changing that behavior, changing it. And so
New words.
New words.
You learned it here first.
I'm curious for you, was it also when you started going down that path of celibacy, or did you find a conscious partner? Or how did that transition start to come for you into the conscious space of sexual energy?
Yeah, it was very similar. For me, in your story, you captured a beautiful description of what happened to me. And to me, it was this feeling of being drained.
Yeah.
You know, it was this feeling of after ejaculation, after climax, after coming to some form of conclusion that usually involved an orgasm, I would feel drained. I would feel just kind of icky. Like I didn't feel inspired. I didn't feel charged up. I didn't feel, excited for life.
Yeah.
And so when I got to a place with certain partners, for instance, and I would get, let's say, into a space where I wasn't feeling a ton of sexual energy moving through me, I would just do it as a form of pleasure, as like a quick fix. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't until I started diving deeper into, we've talked about this a bunch, like getting rid of porn and all these different things, but really cultivating sexual energy with a partner and within myself, that it really started to shift. And it started to shift in a form of having connections with people outside of sex, and we've talked about this a lot, that showed me how much energy there really was behind the scenes when we didn't go through the conventional means of sexual connection. And when I started exploring that more and more, it just started building so much more energy within me, and it actually invited me into this activation, this excitement, this charge up, this powerful expression. And through, for me, the biggest catalyst was edging. Mm-hmm. And it's because you would get to this point, and for those of you that, I think you can understand what edging is, but I'll just say that what it is in case you don't, but that's getting to that 85%.
99.
Woo, you ready for this? Flirting the line there.
Yep, it's fun.
That 85% for me, and then bringing down the stimulation, coming back up, bringing down the stimulation, coming back up, bringing down the stimulation. It charges you up. It fills you with this powerful amount of energy, this intense amount of energy. Most likely because the primal side of you really wants to impregnate and really wants to come and express and explode. But you're holding that back. It's like you're drawing the bomb back, and it just keeps creating this powerful form of energy. So the more I did that, the more I started realizing, wow, I'm more alert, I'm more awake, I don't need as much sleep, I just feel way more charged up, more vital. And so that was kind of my foray into it. It was moving from this place of feeling drained and unconscious and even sometimes icky after I would masturbate for the wrong reasons or have sex for the wrong reasons, to this place of holding back on my primal urges, using the energy to charge up in my system and feeling much more activated and alive and ignited for life.
Yeah, that's so cool. I like how you put that. It's interesting to hear it like that because it's so clear that you're kind of playing with the primal urge and our natural tendency to just do that thing because it felt good. But when you play with that, and you play with that urge, and you don't allow that urge to take over, you gain control, for one thing. You gain real power over your being, and so then that naturally translates everywhere else. You're like, oh, if I can, choose that space that I know is going to feel really good, I know I'm going to get that huge dopamine hit. What if I delay that? Mm-hmm. What if I get that delayed gratification through the sexual experience? What does that mean about me? Mm-hmm. So then you give yourself that power and that honor and appreciation to yourself. Like, wow, I can do this. Like, I'm fucking powerful. Like, I can do that. And that shows up in so many other places. Mm-hmm. So that's really beautiful. And I know that one shows up for me as well. And what you're saying about the stopping watching porn, I think is so important. And we could talk about this for a long time. But we were chatting just before this, and a valuable piece when it comes to manifestation is how are you during your sexual experience? Whether it's masturbation or connecting with somebody else. How are you when you're watching porn? What are you thinking about? We talked about where does it come from? Why are you going into that space? But what are you thinking about during the action while you're hooking up with that person, your partner, whatever, or watching porn? If you're watching porn, most likely it's not coming from a conscious, connected space. There's some porn out there, there's some videos sexually that you can probably connect with that. But more likely than not, it's not coming from that space. I know for me, it never was when I was watching porn. So just do the thing, feel kind of bad after. What am I manifesting there? This falsified version of sexual intimacy. This fake facade of what it means to be sexual. Mm-hmm. To your point, of finding people, places, and spaces to connect with that sexual energy, but not need to fuck, not need to do that, but just be in that energy with others. What are you in that space? You're manifesting power. You're manifesting connection. You're manifesting love. That amplifies. What we talk about here, like we've talked about other things, is amplifiers. Money being an amplifier, we talked about on the last podcast. We believe that sexual energy is obviously one of our greatest amplifiers. So can ejaculation. The edging can be an amplifier, and so can the ejaculation. That can also be an amplifier of our experience. And so to your point, when we're watching porn, when we're having that connection, it can be a beautiful amplifier of energy, of so many different things. If you're in a space of consciously connecting sexually with yourself or with another, and it can amplify something beautiful, it can amplify something negative, a pain, a shame, a guilt. It just amplifies whatever space you're in during the act. I think that's so important and so beautiful, an interesting way to think about it. Especially when I heard you share that story, I'm like, oh yeah, I can for sure relate to that.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that you brought up the topic of working with the primal urges and amplifying, because it's like anything in transformation, you need resistance. And what's the easiest thing to do when you get to that 85, 90% of your orgasm?
They'll be coming around the mountain when they come. They'll be coming around the mountain. They'll be coming around.
Yeah, you get it.
Yeah.
That's the easy. Did that just happen?
Nope. We'll edit that out.
No, we won't.
I know. Okay.
Because we're raw and real. But it causes resistance.
Yeah.
If you are getting to that 85, 90%, it's very challenging to pull back from that expression, that explosion.
You can justify in the experience. You can
Totally.
justify the hell. Oh, you know,
one too many pumps. I got it. I went too far.
This.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever.
But to hold that back and to not fall into that need takes grit, takes resilience, takes power, takes strength. So not only are you coming into this newfound place of power within yourself, but you're also using your orgasm as a generator. Because if you think about a generator, what does it require? It requires friction, right? If you have a light on your bike that's generated by your pedaling, your pedaling is going to have some form of friction that creates that energy. And the more you pedal, the brighter that light will get. So if you are really working on that resistance within yourself to hold back from the climax, and you're then sublimating that energy within yourself, which is a big term that you hear in Tantra, when you're breathing that energy into every part of your body, every cell of your body, to your brain, to your heart, to your gut, it's going to heal you. It's going to activate you. It's going to fill you with vital life force. And so we need to pull back on these primal urges. We need to pull back on these desires. And when we do that and we generate that form of energy and tie it in with the intentionality that Ryan's talking about here, you have the recipe for the most powerful manifestations. Because how do you manifest? High levels of emotion, singular points of focus. You're going to create that. And when we keep that dialed action around our sexual energy, we truly do manifest through masturbation. We truly do manifest through conscious connection. We really, because you're generating creative energy within you, and you're using that for your business. You're using that for your relationship. You're using that for a passion project, whatever that is. You're going to have that vital life force within you.
Yes. Now, let's talk about what it means to consciously come.
Let's talk about conscious coming,
That's
everybody.
It.
So it was funny, before this episode, we were talking about this.
Is that funny?
I don't know why. Why do we say that?
It's funny.
It's funny, cuz, and you could be saying,
you're like, it's funny, I'm depressed. And it's like, well,
that's not funny.
Depends on... Nope, probably not.
Not
okay.
Not good. But we were talking about this because ejaculation feels really good. Or coming feels really good. At the same time, only when it's from the right place. And so this concept of amplification that Ryan was just talking about really came up because, yes, there's an ability to cultivate a ton of sexual energy from not coming because you have this resistance, you have this singular point of focus, you're able to stand in this power and utilize your sexual energy. At the same time, if you are in that expression of elation, that wow, and you're still intentional and you're still focused, we're firm believers that you can use that as a supercharged emotional expression to manifest and create.
Yes, I completely agree. And something that I love that you said once.
God, we're always just like, I love what you say.
I
love what I say, man.
I love
like,
you, dog.
I love what you say, dude.
I love you.
Butter me up.
Yeah. Put some butter on your buns, boy.
Oh, butter my buns.
And funnily enough, you said this on a group client call. So,
oh God,
group coaching call. We were talking about having sex versus getting a full night's rest. And the conversation was around, hey, I want to connect with my partner, but the only time I can do it is at whatever, 9 p.m. So naturally, that goes later. So everything gets delayed. My night routine is blah, blah, blah. So I get less sleep. Is it worth it? And I loved your response to this because you were talking about how you've explored that. And you mentioned this a little bit a minute ago, but around connecting sexually when intentional, when loving on your partner or your person, whoever that being is around you, that you get to connect with sexually, it amplifies your energy. So more likely than not, if you're doing it in a conscious way, your body will actually not need as much sleep because you're creating that prana, that sexual energy, that natural resource of your creative expression through that sexual connection. And that allows you to then wake up the next morning feeling grateful, feeling connected, feeling so many beautiful experiences that you may have gotten a couple hours less of sleep, but you created a powerful connection, which is what most of us live for. So why are we not allowing ourselves to get that creative space and that loving space that we all strive to have because we want to get that extra hour of sleep? I thought that was so beautiful because I'm always like, nah, my routines, like I can never break my routines. So I can 8 p.m. tech off. No, I'm doing my thing in the evening. But a sexual connection,
there's no better evening routine.
That's a beautiful routine.
Amazing.
Evening and morning routine.
Totally.
Beautiful. It's
afternoon routine.
Afternoon, right now. And this routine, that's not a routine. This experience of having that with a partner, with your person, and the spontaneity of being able to bring that in, so the lack thereof of routine, is also necessary to have a powerful routine to create spontaneity in your life and to create that love and that bringing in value in your experience. So yeah, it comes with ejaculation if you're having the sexual experience and you want to come with your partner. Fucking beautiful.
You're going to sleep like a baby.
You'll sleep like a baby. And it's going to amplify your experience of love, gratitude, and connection to that person, to yourself, and the next day. So I love how you talked about that because that's if it's coming from the conscious place. That's if it's coming from a place of love, connection, deep intimacy, reverence for this being, and honor and respect for your partner, whoever you're connecting with. If it's coming from that other place, the unconscious, oh, I need to fuck. Work was, so much, I need to do this. And then after the fact, you don't feel connected to the person. You feel like, it's so late, I shouldn't have blah, blah. I shouldn't have stayed up, I did this, I wish I wouldn't have done that, or you feel less than. That's not what we're talking about. That's the opposite of what we're talking about. So I love that you brought that tool in and that awareness in, because it honestly helped me in allowing myself to give some space around my routine, saying, if my partner wants to connect, I can connect. And it's beautiful. It's actually going to charge me up. And it did. It showed through my experience. I was like, wow, I feel so much better the next day. I mean, you all know if after you have good sex a night before, that next day you're glowing. You're like, wow, yeah, all right, feeling good.
You're buzzing.
You really connected with that person. You do. And that's one of the tools we're going to bring in is the check-in after the fact of ejaculation. Well, ejaculation either with yourself or with a partner.
Post-cum check-in.
Post-cum check-in.
Coined it here, right now, this moment.
Well, the cum test was what some people were calling it.
Yeah,
we'll have
true.
We'll have a cum test contest.
Cum test contest.
But it's a beautiful tool because this actually came from a conversation we were having before this that we used to do a kind of gut check with. If you're having certain foods, check in an hour later. How do you feel? If you have carbs, if you have whatever, the food across the board. This is post-ejaculation. This is your cum test. This is your post-cum test. How do you feel after the fact? Do you feel lethargic and tired? Do you feel shame and guilt? Do you feel like, again, wish I didn't do that. Now I got to do this and blah, blah, blah. Or do you feel excited? Do you feel connected? Do you feel loved? Do you feel grateful that you allowed yourself to experience that level of intimacy, sexual charge, and release in yourself? That is a beautiful cum test. And anything you want to add to that to kind of check in with yourself? I think it's very valuable to use this tool to check in.
For sure. I think I would add, do you feel numb? Because I think that is also a very important thing here to address. And a lot of times we've got the polar opposites, right? We've got I either feel shame or guilt, or I feel, joy, bliss, elation. We don't necessarily talk about that middle ground, which can be, I just kind of feel normal. I find that a lot of people truly avoid sexual energy because there's so much trauma and so many challenging experiences in the human experience that come through sex. And so a lot of people, I find, avoid truly letting themselves feel sexual pleasure or sexual disgust. So they find this line of just, I do the thing because it feels good in the moment, then we're shut off. We're avoiding it.
Yeah.
And with this whole experience, sexual energy isn't always about just touching yourself. It isn't always about coming or ejaculation. Sexual energy is thoughts. Sexual energy is desires. Sexual energy is seeing somebody and being like, wow, that's a really attractive person, and feeling an activation in your body and allowing for that. That's also sexual energy. I find a lot of times people can go to this, I'm just using my sexual energy for other things, but they're actually not letting themselves truly cultivate sexual energy because there is in fact trauma there. So they're actually avoiding it. So I would really bring in this concept of checking in to see if you are numb. And if you're not letting yourself truly feel this stuff, because if that's the case, then there's a powerful avenue for you to start doing some work to look at what might be blocking you there. Because like the toxic side, the numb side is going to shut you off from the superpower of igniting the soul, of igniting your joy, igniting your bliss, and living from these higher elevated states that are going to lead to you being able to truly manifest. So that's a piece that I would add to.
That's really good. I love that. I love that you're bringing that up, and I love that you're bringing up attraction, these other pieces that cause sexual energy that we may be numb around or block or feel guilty for. And I think that's a beautiful thing to mention, because that's a great starting point. If you do feel that numbness, if you don't allow it or have fear around full expression in the sexual space, how do you feel when you see somebody attractive? Does it feel good? Do you feel bad? Do you not allow it? What comes up there? How do you feel when you touch on yourself, just intimately? How does that feel? Noticing these experiences, because most likely we have stories around it. I know I have stories around when I look at women. How I look at women, I used to feel so bad about. And I used to feel so guilty, so much so that I would completely avoid looking at women, because I saw in my father the way he objectified women, literally catcalling while I'm in the vehicle of the car. Like, it's just embedded in my brain. I remember this, and I remember I don't ever want to do that. So if I ever had attraction towards women, I'd be like, this is wrong. No. And I would avoid it altogether. So I felt bad for feeling good. And this is kind of the story of my pleasure practice, is feeling bad for feeling good. So noticing that, finding that story and being like, oh, it was just because I saw the toxic side. Okay, how can I start cultivating this consciously? How can I start appreciating the beauty of a woman's body? How can I just acknowledge that and see beauty for that, for the goddess that she is? And then hone that and just own that and love that and feel that energy in myself and allow myself to move it. It doesn't have to be creepy. It doesn't have to be objectifying. It doesn't have to be anything negative. Noticing that story, noticing the stories we have, whether they're smaller stories or larger stories that are sexually traumatizing, which many people can support with. But noticing those stories, I think, is the first path to really starting to create that expansion for pleasure, really starting to get close to your sexual capacity and start creating those elated spaces.
100%. And I love this. I love it. Because what just came through in you saying that was also, I have felt a ton of shame when I'm in relation with somebody. If I'm in relation with somebody and I see somebody that's attractive, I will shut myself off from that energy because I feel like that's not right. Now, with the partners that I'm with and the conversations that we have and the lifestyle that I live, that stuff is open, which feels really good because it's not that I'm going to act on the feelings, but I'm not going to suppress and push that energy away because the human body is beautiful. When I see someone that's beautiful that brings up a sexual urge inside of me, that's a gift. Now, the big question is, what are you doing with that? Are you taking that back to your place and looking at your partner differently now? Because that's not a positive use of the energy. But are you taking that and using it and embodying it as, wow, this life is beautiful, humans are beautiful, sexual energy is amazing, I can't wait to get home and just completely connect with my person.
Yeah.
Same thing, very different outcome. But so many of us, from trauma or from anything, or from in relations, we shut ourselves off from these moments of sexual expression within us. We numb them, we cut them off, and we limit our ability to utilize these gifts from God, the divine, the universe, whatever we want, to create, to transmutate into our relationship, our sexual connection with our partner, whatever that may be.
Yeah. When you see a beautiful flower, you don't compare it to all the other flowers.
I got a flower at home, I can't look at it.
Exactly. When you see a beautiful flower, you don't think, fuck, why am I thinking this about this flower? You just appreciate and have all of the beauty of the flower. Last night, there was a beautiful sunset. It actually made me cry. It was so beautiful.
It was so beautiful.
You saw it last night? It was fucking amazing.
My tire was popped on. I was just like...
It was insane. I teared up and I had to go to the beach and watch it. That being said, I didn't compare it to the other sunsets. I didn't think, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this good about this sunset. What if this other sunset of this tree next to me thinks... There's none of that because I have no stories around the sunset or the flower. That just shows how we can see beauty in anything around us. It just ties into the stories that are attached. Because after I saw that sunset, I sent some beautiful voice notes to people I know, like, oh my God, blah, blah. I used that energy and it was obvious.
Alchemized it.
I alchemized it. I used it. It actually showed up as some creative energy. So probably a little bit of sexual energy there. That sunset turned me on.
Yeah. Sunsets make me horny.
Dude, those colors.
Ooh, damn.
And that's the objective response to attraction and beauty. But when we make it subjective and we have storylines around it, we don't allow ourselves to experience the full extent of sexual energy, connection, and love in ourselves because we're blocked around it from some other story we've adopted. So if you can compare it to the flower or the sunset, it seems silly, like, oh, of course I can just appreciate that. But when we look at a person, whether we're in relation or we have a story around it, it's like, that's bad, that's wrong, I don't know, block it. And then what does that create? That amplifies. That amplifies in ourselves. We feel bad that we did that. We think that we did that. Then when we're around our partner or around other people,
we start resenting them. We start like it. Just,
I feel this because of you. I can't allow
frequency down, down, and then it causes all kinds of negative outcomes because you just fall into that draining spiral again. It's like the moment we shut ourselves off from sexual energy is the moment that we start to ultimately drain ourself of life force.
Yes.
Drain ourself of creative expression.
Yes. The sexual amplification. It's very real. And it can come with attraction. It can come with sexual connection. It can come with ejaculation. It can come with edging. It can come with being in life and just finding appreciation for something. The sexual energy arises in many different arenas, but it's a major, major amplifier for all areas of our lives.
100%.
Yes. So into this, masturbation, manifestation, Cam brought up a cool idea, which was actually creating a manifestation for each of us as a challenge to
Masturbate to fruition.
Yes, exactly.
But you don't have to just masturbate.
Well, no, I'll edge.
Okay.
I want to ejaculate ever for these.
He's a liar. It's a bold-faced liar.
Ever for the next 24 hours. And this actually, I did want to talk about that. Our frequency of masturbation, our frequency of sexual connection. That's interesting because it might be valuable as well. Because some of these things we've made a bit vague, but we didn't really talk about the practical side of us. Like, what does it look like in a week? What does it look like in a month? What do we do with our partner? Do we masturbate? I think that's
definitely. I think that's an important one. So I guess that will complement the challenge very well because here we are once again spitting a bunch of stuff at you without always making it very applicable. Yes, these are good lessons and they're probably flicking some synapses in your brain. At the same time, we want to give you a tool and we want to give you actionable items so that you can ignite yourself.
Yeah, and tell you what we actually do.
Exactly.
That's valuable, not just give you things to do. It's like, hey, this is what we do regularly.
Yeah, so for me, sex ebbs and flows, right? Naturally with illness, injury, excitement, travel, all these different sides of being human. But when everything's in flow, everything's moving, it's kind of a once a day, once every 2 days kind of experience for me.
Okay. Nighttime, morning?
I'm a nighttime guy.
Okay.
I'll do the occasional morning session on the weekends.
Yeah.
I think for me, because I'm a Taurus, Virgo rising, I'm very into my systems, my processes. So mornings during the weekdays and stuff for me are very systematic. They're very cultivated. But my evenings are more open, more fluid.
Yeah.
So in the mornings on the weekdays, I'm just in my practice doing my things.
Cool.
So I'm normally a nighttime guy. I like the darkness. I like the candlelight. I like some nice soft music, and I love having sexual connection before I go to sleep. I find it's a beautiful way to connect with my partner, to also then wind down the evening, get a good night's rest, and really end the day in a form of connection.
Yeah. And out of those times, how often are you ejaculating? Or are you always, whenever you connect sexually with your partner, and only edging when you do your personal practice? Or what does that look like?
So I haven't been edging lately.
Okay.
I've been ejaculating in my sexual expression for sure. I use edging when I'm being very intentional with wanting to boost my energy, wanting to create, wanting to really utilize that side of the resistance aspect of cultivating and manifesting that we talked about.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm in the space of more just deep connection, deep pleasure, deep allowing. And I never go into a sexual experience with an outcome defined, but I follow the energy.
Yeah.
And with my current partner, as with most of us, it's very pleasurable when our partner climaxes, right? So, once she's climaxed, then it really gets her excited about me climaxing. So we have found a really beautiful dance in a sense of really enjoying each other's expression of the climax. So we've really been investigating that recently. So I haven't been edging.
Cool.
Because there's been that pleasure in your partner being in pleasure.
Yeah. And it charges you up, as we talked about.
Yeah.
You're doing it from a conscious space.
Felt great. It's been leading to great sleeps. It's been leading to really, really good connection. But here's the important thing is that it's not like we're just having sex to climax. There is so many energetic orgasms. There are so many moments where I could have climaxed that I pull back. There's so many moments of dancing in each other's pleasure that it makes it so much more connected and intentional. This isn't like, we're just coming together, making out a bit, ripping each other's clothes off, and just fucking like jackrabbits until we come. Like that's not the case at all. It's a very intentional act with a lot of communication. Where are you at? What are you feeling? What do you want next? How do you want to approach this? Do you feel like you want to come tonight?
Call
Do you
me daddy.
feel like you want? Yeah, call me daddy. All these things, right? So, but there's a lot of that's going on.
Okay.
So it just follows the natural flow.
I'm curious because when it comes to conscious sex and tantric sex, these are longer practices, right? This is 1, 2, 3 hours. If you're doing it, like if you're doing the full kind of process and you like, it's a beautiful tease, lead up, build, and like wind down as well. Do you also bring in the primal play? Do you guys just go like fuck on the countertops? Like, do you also bring that side in to kind of, because I noticed that the thought whenever I'm also connecting with my person is that does every time need to be a ritual? And so, and it has been the past bit, but also like before we're just like, oh, I just feel it right now. Like, oh, I want to move with that. And we say it and we go with it, which kind of is so ritual.
That's
but
what
it's,
I was.
it's this.
That's
but
what I was just gonna say.
It is.
And I had a conversation about this with my partner the other day, where she looked at me after we had one of those wild primal experiences.
Yeah.
And she looked at me and she was like, "That's also ritual."
Yes,
like that
it
feels
is.
like, she was like, I felt like two Viking warriors, and we were just like going into it.
Yes.
And
That's true.
And it was beautiful but we had both, and we've talked about this on the conscious sex episode, is that we both declared like we want this.
Yeah.
But we also would move in and out. When it was super intense, sometimes we'd calm down for a moment. We'd catch our breath, right? We'd do these things. We'd explore, but then it would ramp back up. It was these evolutions and these flows.
Beautiful. Yeah, I guess it almost or always is a ritual if there's intention behind the practice, no matter what it looks like. But that is interesting to me when it comes to these conscious spaces. It seems so often there's almost a format of doing it, and a way it's supposed to be, and a length it's supposed to take, and XYZ needs to get checked off. But it can look like whatever the fuck you want it to.
For sure.
Which is really cool. And I thought you both, as the wild animals you are, would also have that experience of the intense kind of primal play.
For sure.
Cool.
And I know you're also exploring with somebody right now.
Yeah.
How about you? Are you climaxing? Are you edging? How are you cultivating? Because I know you're both very intentional, very connected human beings as well. How is it playing out in your world?
It's super fun. As you know, this person was away for months before she was here, so we were just talking over the phone, which long distance relating with a sexual connection is a lot of fun, but it was a new realm for me. So there'd be a lot more edging there because I would play with myself but not want to ejaculate. So I would just edge, and then have one bigger experience with her virtually, which is cool, but very new for me. Now she's here. For the most part, it is that kind of conscious coming. It's that release. But we played with it a few times where, and we talked about this while she was away, is edging before something, specifically ecstatic dance, have an experience, have an edge, go to that thing, get charged up, get activated, have that experience, and then come back, and then have the release. Come on the back
of the experience.
Come on the back end of the experience. Seriously, have the edge first, go to the thing, and then have the release. So it's like it's like 4 hours, 5 hours of things. But you get to see each other, you get to build each other. And I like when she dances with other people. She likes when I dance with other people. This kind of, as we said, with attraction and kind of breaking these stories of limitations of what it means to do these things. I get to dance with other people. She dances with other people. We see each other like, yeah, okay, can't wait for that. And then we have that experience. And it's so beautiful. We've done that a few times, which I love. But for the most part, it's like you, where we're having these connections and the release happens because there's so much pleasure in that for both of us. And I've had times where I'm like, no, I'm going to edge. And she's like, nah, I want it. And I'm like, okay, here we go. Let's do it. And it's beautiful because it's fun and we've talked about these spaces. And there's also been times like, I'm going to edge. And she's like, all right, I respect that. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And like, it just depends on the playful mood we're in. But we're able to navigate these things by discussing them, during and after.
So once again, intentionality.
Exactly.
So I actually got a message from a listener the other day. And this person told me that it was really hard to hear a lot of our discussions on conscious sexuality because their partner wasn't open to it.
Yeah.
And this was something that really was interesting for me to address. And what this person told me was actually that listening to the podcast made her feel a lot of shame, made her feel a lot of guilt, made her feel a lot of almost anger towards the inability to express this way. And at first I was kind of taken aback because I was like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
You know, that really sucks. And then at the same time, I had a conversation with her and I started talking about, well, what's your personal pleasure practice look like?
Exactly.
And I think it's a great segue for us to get into, is that yes, we are connecting with separate individuals at this point in time in our lives, but we're not always connecting with people, or we've been in relationships where the person hasn't necessarily wanted to connect with us the way that we now have in our lives. And so the most important part of that is the personal pleasure practice. Is What are you doing to cultivate that sexual energy within yourself? Yeah. And I have found recently, with the butt wand episode that we went into, that has become a much larger part of my life as well. And so I invited this listener into, what are you doing to cultivate your own sexual energy? And it turned out there wasn't much going on there. And sexual energy, like everything else, must be done by example. And I'll tell, and this, it's funny. I was we'll get vulnerable once again. But I was busy one night and I was working, and my partner was like, "Hey, let's connect." And I was like, "No, I got too much. I'm too fragmented. I'm too in my head right now." And she was like, "Okay, cool." And then she just went and laid on my bed and she started pleasuring herself. And here I am working, and I'm listening to what's going on in my bedroom. And I remember being like, fuck this. Like, I threw my computer down, and I went in there and we had a beautiful experience. Yeah. She didn't say, no, you have to do this. She didn't say, hey, I heard in this podcast, you got to do this thing. She was like, hey.
And she did not allow pleasure because you didn't do it for her.
Exactly. And she took the ownership over that and said, I'm going to go pleasure myself because I'm worthy of this pleasure. Now, you can join me if you want. And I'm going to just have so much fun in here. And some people might see that as manipulation, or some people might see that as trying to, get what you want. At the same time, it's not that at all. It's leading by example. It's inviting somebody into something that they might not be able to see. I had blinders on because I was working. I was in, my work mind. I can get into this very focused state that made me forget how much I wanted to connect. So for a lot of people listening, your personal pleasure practice and how you invite a partner or just emit sexual energy to potential partners is up to you. Yeah. Up to you, 100%.
Yeah. And I'll just say, I know for me, I think for you as well, that's the only reason we're able to now have this connection with our partners, is because our personal practice was so sacred, was so beautiful, and happened so often that we really loved on ourselves and created space for that. Just like anything else, as you said, it amplifies, and what you can do for you, you can do for others, others want to do for you, but you don't need others to do it for you, because you can do it with yourself. And so you get to have that experience, and everything else is a bonus. You're like, wow, I get to have this experience with another person. But as you're saying, it first must come from you.
I'm a firm believer that you won't find it in a person until you can find it. It's
just like love. Like if you don't love
yourself, you're not gonna find it.
Whatever
Ryan starts saying, I'm just gonna finish, and then you quote me.
Damn it!
You quote me for it.
Damn it! Cam said something really awesome on this episode.
It just comes to me so quickly.
Oh, yeah, it comes to you.
Yeah, it comes
on you. Yeah, okay.
My sexual energy is just pumping right now, bro. Yeah. Can you feel it?
Yeah, I feel you in me, and that's weird.
You feel me in you.
Yeah, so it's true, though. It shows up everywhere. Just keep going with it. If we can't give it to ourselves, we're not going to get it from anyone else, and we're not going to call in somebody that can actually create space for that, because we're mirrors for each other. If I can't give it to me, my partner probably can't give it to themselves. So then we're going to just give lack to each other and not actually know what we desire. So I love that invitation. And I also love the open conversation. So being able to talk about it without an outcome in mind, just being like, what do you like? What are these things? And the most common one is, what are your love languages? Because it's so often we think our partners experience pleasure or attraction or love the same way we do. We just assume like, oh, they must want that same thing. Why aren't they doing it to me? Maybe they don't know. Maybe we haven't shared it. Maybe we haven't asked. But it's a beautiful invitation to start the conversation around either love languages, how do you experience pleasure, what do you think about attraction, all of the things on these episode on this episode is bringing these things up for yourself. And if you're with a partner or a person you're starting to explore this with, a relationship with, it's amazing to have these conversations to start diving into what does pleasure mean to them? How do they experience it? What does love feel like? What does ecstasy feel like? What does sex feel like? What are their experiences or stories around it? Because more likely than not, if we're not experiencing it from our partner, they have their own blocks for themselves. So yes, the personal practice.
And some partners aren't open to those conversations.
Definitely true.
And that's where this, and the only reason I'm that's really present for me is that was the challenge with this listener they were saying, I can't have these conversations with my partner because they shut it off.
Yeah.
And so that's the most beautiful option, is being able to dive into love languages. What are your fantasies? What are your desires? Really getting into that. At the same time, that takes a pretty heightened level of understanding of one's pleasure practice, one's sexual energy. So a lot of times the invitation is going to be one of the most powerful ways, I will say. And that's why it's so important to just know this for yourself. And the more you get into knowing it for yourself, you can ask for that from your partner. If you keep getting no's, then you have a decision to make on whether or not that's the right partner for you to be with. At the same time, you got to know what you want to ask for. They're never going to just know that.
Exactly.
So really dive into what you want. What are your fantasies? What are your pleasure practices? And start cultivating that sexual energy within yourself. And when you tie it to a singular point of focus, you're going to create some powerful shit. So many people talk to me like, I can't find flow in this. I can't find this. I can't find that. Sexual energy and pleasure and cultivation of one's sexual energy is one of the most powerful avenues for creation. And if there's a block there, there's a block in creation. It's as simple as that.
Yes. Block in creation, block in manifestation, block in all the Asians.
All the Asians.
Okay, so let's get down to our challenge.
Yes.
For ourselves, for each other.
Yes.
What is it?
And this is, do we call this the cum test?
The cum test contest?
This is the Ignite You cum test.
Yeah, the cum test I thought was the check-in after.
I know.
You're calling that the post-cum.
No, I know. But, contest, cum test.
Cum test.
Anyways.
Sounds good.
The Masturbation Manifestation Challenge.
Okay, good.
So we're going to challenge each other to really utilize our sexual energy for our next manifestations.
Yep.
So Ryan, what would you like to manifest with your penis?
Ooh. From my penis, I want to, and this is a 30-day challenge,
penis
right?
purpose is...
My penis purpose. This is 30 days? Or this is
Let's
what?
do 60.
60. All right, we'll do 69 days to manifest
You dirty,
this.
man.
Well, you said it, kind of.
I didn't. You said
So
it.
for me, it's manifesting a home. Right now I have a house, and it feels good. It's a good space.
Yeah, it's good space.
Cool space. And I want to feel at home. I'm looking at a few places. The places I'm looking at are beautiful, but when I walked in, it wasn't like, oh, this is home. So I may have to go to one of those places, but I can make it feel like home. I can choose to find the space that feels good and create that. So that for me is how I'm going to use the sexual energy, how I'm going to have that masturbation manifestation and use it with the person that I'm connecting with and with myself to create a space that feels like home that I can connect into, and then naturally have my rituals in that space.
Beautiful.
Yes, that is my 69-day challenge. What about you, brother?
My masturbation manifestation is going to be birthing our app. Because I have, in all honesty, had a bit of a creative block on finishing it. And funnily enough, we've got the branding team in who's working on some really cool stuff that's all going to come together in about 30 days, which I'm super stoked on.
There you go.
But there's also been this kind of block around the experience and how it's all going to go. And so I'm going to use sexual energy to really re-inspire, reignite
There you go.
this passion and this creative energy inside of me to bring forth the app in a way that I don't even think I can see yet. Perfect. Just such a beautiful, powerful expression, because
I love that.
We want the app to feel like you guys are coming into the jungle to transform with us in the palm of your hands.
Ooh.
It's a jungle in the palm of your hands.
So what does this actually look like? Because still, even to what I said and what you said, it's kind of abstract.
Finished app.
Okay, well, yeah, the outcome seems specific, but the path to it. Are you
masturbation?
Are you edging, or do you write this out? Do you have it somewhere? Like what does it actually look like in application?
See, we're doing this on the fly, crew. So.
Masturbation application.
Masturbation application.
Yep.
How do you apply? What do you apply your masturbation to?
Yeah.
So yes, writing it out, getting very clear on what the exact vision is.
Okay.
And then I'm going to edge a lot more. I'm not going to say that I'm just going to edge for 69 days because it's a lot.
And you've had a blue ball experience.
Blue ball experience. I had a very, very painful experience edging, most definitely.
Yeah, so we won't do that.
So we won't do that. But yes, I'll use a combination of my own pleasure practice with edging. I'll probably mostly use my own pleasure practice for edging because I find that that's really my favorite way to do it.
And the wand, maybe.
And the wand, for sure.
Yes.
The wand's definitely going to be a part of this journey.
Yes.
And other than that, I'm not going to think about the app when I'm connecting.
I was wondering, you're like reading the paper as you're connecting. Oh, can't wait. That color scheme.
Honey, I really feel like you're not present with me. It's like, oh, Ryan and I challenge each other to manifest with sexual energy. So that's actually really cool that you brought that up, though, because that is definitely not it.
Yeah.
We want to still cultivate the sexual energy with our partner very intentionally. Intention isn't to think about the app when I'm having sex with my partner. The intentionality is to connect so deeply with my partner that I feel alive and invigorated with sexual energy that I can then apply to the vision.
It's a catalyst.
It's a catalyst.
So you're not putting the app in your spank bank.
No.
Okay.
Well,
Interesting
point. So that's a very good point, because do you actually masturbate and think about what you want to create in that moment to drive the energy, to drive the manifestation?
You know, what I feel and what I would do naturally is edge, not thinking of the home I'm going to be in. Like, fuck, those
hot,
curtains. I'm getting blackout curtains. I can't wait to have no light at night. And then
edge.
edge.
Lamp on my coffee table. It's going to be so good.
Great. Can't wait for that couch. And so I would think about it right after. So I would get to that edge, having my experience, being present with me. Because I'm not leaving myself and not being not present. The spank bank, the spank bank with another person, like her for you, manifesting you, makes a lot of sense because she wanted a sexual connection with you.
I was the representation of the sex and the outcome.
So she was thinking of you, which makes sense.
Okay.
But this is a separate thing. So we don't really want to quite think about a separate thing while connecting with ourselves.
Yeah.
Unless it's that person we want to have that connection with. So I feel right after
you drop into meditation.
Exactly.
You drop into
you go right into that
visualization, some form of journaling, some form of
literally a checklist of like the things I want and need and what I want to create there. It's like yes, we figured it out. It's like having the coffee before you go into work. People use it as a catalyst.
Yeah.
We don't use that as a catalyst. Don't do that. Use matcha and cacao.
Cappuccinos.
And the catalyst into the thing to kind of get you activated into it. That's an activator. Use that, leverage that into the manifestation practice, not during. I feel that that's what we should do.
You get gassed up before you go to the race.
Oh, there you go.
You don't pump gas while you're racing.
That's true. Most of the time. Okay.
You heard it first here.
We did it. Get gassed up and stay lit.
Stay lit, crew. Masturbation Manifestation Challenge, 69 days. Yeah. Let's get it!